Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to another Greenbook webinar. I'm so excited to have the Insights Now team here with me today. But before I hand it on over to all of our speakers, I just want to go over a few things. First, we've got that chat box. Feel free to let us know where you're tuning in from or drop your LinkedIn. We always love to connect. Next, we have that questions box. If you have any questions, drop them there and we'll get to them at the end. But with that, I will hand it on over to our speakers.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. It's fantastic to be here today. I appreciate everybody joining in. We're very excited today to be talking about System 1 and System 2 thinking and how that can be a really wonderful game changer for driving brand success. With us today, we've got a wonderful set of speakers. I'm Greg Stuckey. I'm the Chief Research Officer at Insights Now. I have the honor today of being joined by Dave Lundahl, who's our CEO. And then we've got Tina Michaels, who's the Director of Consumer Insights and Analytics at Sabra. She is a master of curiosity when it comes to understanding consumers and how to connect with them. So Tina, welcome.
Thank you.
And then Dal. Dal, is the Senior Manager of Sensory and Product Insights and Product Experience at Starbucks. And Dal is always asking why, like trying to dig deeper, figuring out why people do what they do. I just love that about you, Dal. And, you know, getting to understand how to build those product experiences in a way that keep that connection super deep. So welcome, both of you. All right, so today we're going to have a little bit of kickoff around some data. And one of those data points that is always shocking to me is that 70% of new product fail. These are specific to brand extensions, right? So brands in the market, add a new product to the line under that brand, 70% failure rate still today. And really that seems almost avoidable to me. It's kind of shocking. But I want to start with a poll and talk to everybody here, find out why do you think brands fail? So go take a look at this poll and select 3, you can select more, but select your top 3 reasons. Why do you think brands fail? All right. So I'm watching all of the wonderful numbers come in here. Everybody's going fast. It's looking like irrelevant to people is in the slight lead at the moment. We've got product doesn't deliver on promise, lack of awareness coming up there. Cost is all the way at the bottom at the moment. So that's good. Always hope that cost isn't a factor for people, but often really is, as we well know. All right, so it looks like most people have dropped their votes in. Irrelevant to people is winning at 23% at the moment, and doesn't deliver on promise and lack of awareness. Well, let's take a look at what the data beyond what we think is the right answer says about why products fail. Well, the number one reason product fail is that it's not recognized, i.e. there's not enough marketing to drive awareness, i.e. the product, people don't know it exists out there. And because they don't know it exists, they're not gonna buy it. The second most common reasons product fail is they're not relevant to people, i.e. people don't see a fit for that particular product in their lives. So if the product isn't positioned well, it's not going to connect with people. And even though they're aware of it, they don't think it fits in their life when in fact maybe it should. And then the third reason that is the statistically largest reason why products fail is that it's not rewarding, i.e. the product itself is not delivering on the promise. It gets to trial, but it doesn't drive repeat because there's nothing there that's really captivating them, or there's some sort of an inconsistency between the brand and the product.
And it looks like our people that connected in and did the poll seemed to get it right.
Seem to get it right, which is exciting, right? All right, so now when I first presented this data at Insights Now, I was astutely poked. Why are you being so negative? Why do you talk about failure? let's flip it around. Let's talk about successes. Hey, 30% of these launches are successful. How are these people beating the odds? What are they doing that is making their product successful? What's unique? Rather than just attacking those negatives, let's look at some of the positives. So we're going to kick off our panel discussion today with two people who are consistently beating the odds with their brands, with Sabra and Starbucks. And let's throw it out to you. What are the things you're doing to help you beat the odds? And Dal, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, to answer that question, I think that what I've learned is that there isn't just one way to capture the voice of the consumer. I think there's multiple ways to do that. And I think that in all the years that I've been doing sensory, 30 plus years, I find that it's usually a combination of qualitative research, quantitative research. So it isn't just going out and just doing a CLT, right? It's sometimes it's in the form of focus groups. It's in the form of online communities. It's in the form of, and in this case, in the form of emotions. So one of the things that I have learned is that when you do conduct a CLT, you do get a really good readout of what it is that your consumer likes. But sometimes you don't get that reaction of how is it that product makes them feel. And I think that that's really the important thing. So for me, I think for success, it's a combination of a lot of different methodologies that I combine together, synthesize together to be able to tell the story of whether or not a product is going to do well or not. So it is really a combination of more than just your textbook sensory evaluation. It's a combination of a lot of different methodologies that actually helps, I think, and actually tells a more powerful story.
Yeah. I like that. And Tina?
I would say, first, I have to say innovation is not easy, right? Even though you may do all of your homework up front, you're still not guaranteed success as clearly as what Greg showed there. So we've done a few things to try to improve our odds. First and foremost, tied to the support, we realized, you know what, you really need to be very choiceful in the innovation you come out with, and making sure that you do have the support available when you have an idea that is compelling, that your research has shown is compelling to consumers. Then make sure people know about it. Right? They can't buy it if they don't know it's there. And to think that people are paying attention when they go shopping and they're going to see your beautiful new baby on shelf there. People are, so many times we see they're on autopilot as they're shopping. They are in a routine of what they normally purchase, and they're not taking the time to really see what else might be there. So you can't rely on simply being on shelf and thinking that you are going to pop off the shelf and make them aware. The second thing is, yes, I completely agree that, you know what, you have to fulfill against what your idea is. So we always make sure that the product delivers upon the promise that we are making to consumers. The third thing that we've actually learned more recently is you may have a strong idea there, but it needs to also align with your brand and what your brand stands for. And if it doesn't, that could really curtail its success. If people are coming to expect certain benefits, certain feelings, certain characteristics based upon what your brand stands for, you have to make sure that the innovation aligns with that. Because while the idea may seem appealing to people, it may just not be right for your brand. And that may not be the job that they are looking for your brand to do for them. So that's another thing that we're really focusing in on. And I couldn't agree more with Dal. I think it's these types of learnings come from a variety of different sources. They don't all come from just your standard concept product test. So,
yeah, that's
for sure.
That's really excellent. And so, what I'm going to do next here is that, because I'm going to try to take what Tina has said and what Dal, I love what you're talking about a bigger story. And Tina, I'm going to kind of build on what you talked about to try to set the table for further discussion, and then bring in, how does system 1 and 2 matter to this? How does that build the story better, and how does it fit into what we do to beat these odds? So I'll try to set the table, and so let me what we have found is the best way to increase your odds is to make it very easy for people to develop a healthy habit in using your product. So products that are cognitively easy to habitually use are ones that are easy to understand, are relevant, and don't create cognitive dissonances. I mean, there's no misalignments between the promise and its experience. Okay. Now, so let me see if I can explain this a little further. I'm going to use an analogy, a metaphor of a flywheel, where the faster the flywheel goes around, the more embedded that healthy habit. Okay. First and foremost, you need that promise. And this is exactly what I think Tina was saying, so the promise by the brand has to be relevant. Claims made must fit into the lives of people, alleviating their tensions, what they feel, or what their demands are, and to lower the bar to what they're willing to trade away. Okay. Then your product design must be done in a way that aligns with that promise, so you don't create cognitive dissonances. So if you're a plant-based product positioned to look and taste like real meat, but it doesn't, you're going to create a cognitive dissonance. If you're positioned to be environmentally sustainable, but the product is wrapped in plastic, it's going to create cognitive dissonances. So finally, to make this flywheel go around, and this is, I think, what Tina, what you were saying, which is so important, it's got to connect back to the brand. Okay, to make the flywheel complete so it goes around, to embed those habits. Okay, the experience must align with that relevant promise to become a reward. Okay. And that builds and reinforces the brand relationship with people, as well as the trust that people have in the brand that will deliver what it says it will do, and with this experience. So really important, this metaphor, we use this a lot. And so now, to summarize, developing a relevant promise, you got this, it's got to have a relevant promise, a rewarding experience. If you can focus just on those two, I think you can make this flywheel go around, beat the odds. Further, just to make sure we're all using the same language here, when we say system 1, we're referring to the mode of thinking used when people have implicit reactions to things. And these reactions, occur when there's no cognitive dissonance. The experience fits what people expect, the beliefs they have. These reactions tend to be correlated with habits, and norms. So you don't have to think about it. You react. And these reactions to system 1 are very fast, often before you're cognitively aware. On the other hand, system 2 is a mode of thinking used when people have explicit reactions. Okay, these reactions occur, when there's misalignments, as we talked about, between expectations and so on, and they occur with perceptions and experiences that disrupt us, force us to be aware and think about what to do. And so here's my key point: both modes of thinking are incredibly critical in developing a relevant promise or a rewarding experience. So measuring both are keys to success. Okay, that said, for about the last 15 years, about 15 years ago, I should say, when I was writing my first book on emotions, research, and innovation, we started playing around. This is Greg and I and the rest of the Insight Sound team, with a number of traditional system 1 semantic methods. Okay. And we eliminated most of these, like there's passive techniques also out there, like eye dilations and wearables and so on. They're too costly and often inaccurate. So we looked at the best behavioral measures out there. And what we found is that there's a key deficiency amongst these measures. That is, you can't tell whether a participant is using a system 1 or system 2 mode of thinking in their response. So what we did is we developed a methodology, and we call it the implicit explicit test. Instead of just a timed positive or negative response, this technique applies a simple 3-step process: calibration, priming, and assessment to generate a 2x2 matrix. So Greg, if you could put that up. This 2x2 matrix shown here, when Greg clicks it, yeah, there you go. Thank you. It overcomes its deficiency. Okay, so it leads to a wide range of applications. You can report market level statistics, for any one of these 4 cells, or you can create some sort of combination, mathematical combination, to create other sort of metrics. So it's got a lot of applications. Okay, now one of the first applications that we came out with, and we tried, was in the area of understanding consumer avoidance tendencies to ingredients. Okay, so people look on the backpack and they see something in there, are they going to, is there something in there they're going to avoid buying the product? Big problem with clean label. After each participants, as this is how it works, go through a calibration. This calibration determines very simply what is the cutoff time for them in that moment using their device for what is an implicit or explicit response. We calculate that first, and then we prime them in some moment. Here it's, think about a typical choice of cereal that you're eating before you head out for the day and so on. That's the prime. And then we help them assess a series of ingredient names. Here you could say, okay, ascorbic acid, pretty, some people don't understand it's the same as vitamin C. So you can okay or avoid ascorbic acid. A lot of people will say avoid. Vitamin C, a lot of people will say very quickly, okay, because it's something that's inherently good for people. So this is the methodology, and it leads to this simple 2x2 matrix. Okay, now what we were able to do from that is that take this 2x2 matrix, and then we develop something called a clean label score, and you can see it here. You see honey got a very high score. It's high system 1 sort of acceptance. The next set are high system 2. People had to think about it, but yet still accepted or click OK. And the stuff at the bottom, there was very high system 1 avoidances. Okay, people said, I would avoid that. So it's a great metric. It stands the test of time. There's literally hundreds of companies that have been using this technique for a number of years now and building database and such. So anyways, with that, I'm going to hand it back to Greg, because hopefully I set the table for some further conversation here, and we can move on.
You bet. Well, let's talk real quickly about a couple other applications. So clean label score is intriguing. That certainly affects people at shelf and when they're thinking about products, especially if you're highlighting ingredients. Also, when we look at other types of developing relevant promises, there's 2 aspects to understanding the value of system 1 and system 2 that are really important. And this comes back to the strategy that you're going to take when you're bringing out products, when you're putting new messages on. And that's really a question of, what are you going to do behaviorally? Are you going to try to nudge an existing behavior along to get it to be more repeatable, more frequent, or are you trying to disrupt something that people are doing today in order to get them to do something new? So one of the challenges we've always had with implicit, explicit, system 1, system 2 type methods is, if you don't know the percentage of people that you're nudging or disrupting, you don't know what kind of decision to make. So you might find something that's very relevant, but you don't know what it's doing behaviorally for the population. So we'll take a glance at some claims and some benefit associations. Here's an example when we worked with 3M on launching Scotch cushion lock. You can see these two claims, fast and easy to use, takes up 85% less space, both extremely relevant to 96 and 95% of the people who are looking at this concept. But if you break down their percentage of people who were had that an implicit reaction or a fast system 1 reaction versus a slow reaction, you can see that fast and easy to use more is going to nudge more people, whereas takes up 85% less space, causes a higher percentage of people to go, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I like that. And now it's real positive. So being able to understand which you need in order to set that relevant promise is really important. And here they were trying to enter a category that was really, really heavily habitualized with plastic bubbles. And they're trying to really capture attention. And so they wanted a combination of keep those habits strong of using wrap, but disrupt them in a way that makes them think about, well, is this the right choice or not? So we paired nudge and disrupt combinations on the pack, and then did a turf to find out which of the disruptive ones were going to capture the widest percentage, because you get a little bit of disrupt with this one, a little bit with that one, but what combination really grabs the highest percentage of people? So that was really successful in setting the stage there, and they knew how to then drive disruption in a category that needed a little bit of a nudge at the same time. Now, other application is when you're looking more at benefits. This is where you're trying to say, okay, are we sure we're delivering on our brand's promise, right? And you can look at various ways to find associations. And one popular way we use System 1 here at this finding relevance area is when we're thinking through, if I know what benefit I'm going after in a key moment, what are the types of like ingredients or statements I can make that are going to automatically cue that that particular thing is going to happen. So over the holidays here, we ran our Santa challenge, our holiday beverage challenge, where we looked at 3 parts of his journey, and we had people map ingredients to benefits. So in preparation, it was all about clear mind. Journey was all about energy. Rest was all about that calming, relaxation, rejuvenating. So when you have those different specific benefits that you're going after, are there different ingredients that you might put into a beverage that might help signal automatically what people are going to get? So you see on the left here the familiar items, right? So for energy, you got spicy chili, cinnamon, peppermint, and the things that might be a creative twist that slowed a little bit more people down, like ginger, honey, and lemon. And then also things you obviously would want to avoid that makes people think definitely not going to get energy if I have that. And you can see things like peppermint fall in the, the nudge space, right? That's super familiar for energizing products. But when they think about peppermint as associated with relaxation, that's a lot more people had like, I have to think about that. I guess that would work. And so that's a little bit more creative twist that you could add. So using this allows you to have that foundation of creativity. So those are 3 different ways, ingredient scores, claims assessments, ingredient associations with benefits that could all be valuable. But there's lots of different applications. Any tool like implicit testing is got many applications. It's a tool in your toolbox, like Dal said, and need it to be in combination. So back to the panel now, Dal, Tina, what are you thinking about? How has using System 1 and System 2 thinking changed your approach to product positioning? Now, and Tina, you had talked about, really focusing on brand. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'll be totally transparent, and I would not purport to say that I'm so along on this curve of System 1. We have started adopting it. I definitely see the value that it would bring. So the one thing I would recommend to everybody who's participating here on this webinar is to really push. I always now, push or ask our vendors, like, what are you doing in this space to further our learnings? Because what I've found is that, as brands, we tend to have a very clear image to our consumers as to what we stand for, and yet it's a very logical, system to thought through approach to, gee, what does this brand and what does this product give me? And we have different products in our line, and yet we found that we tended to default to sort of what the largest portion of our portfolio stood for. So we've really started to think about and explore with System 1 type questioning to get that visceral response to different parts of our portfolio. And that has been really tremendous in helping us separate. Obviously, we stand for something as an overarching umbrella as a brand, but there are different ways and nuances that each of those items in our portfolio support that overall positioning. So that's how we've been exploring with it. We found, the speed that you spoke to of making sure we get what that visceral reaction is. We've also started to explore, I was telling you a little bit about this, Greg, about how do we incorporate also images so that we help consumers articulate what they are feeling and take them away from just pure words and descriptors. And I'd say just continue to explore. We've found that it's been really, really, it's just added another layer to our learning that has been really helpful.
Yeah, that's really, really an important point that, there's nothing holding, even though it's called semantic in this space. There's nothing holding us, people wanting to work with System 1, System 2 thinking and trying to figure out how to nudge or disrupt behavior from using all sort of creative approaches to this. And I like how you're thinking about under one umbrella brand, you can still have a lot of different core pieces. Some products may be positioned more towards social, may be positioned more towards energy, et cetera, so forth. They can all fit within an umbrella as long as you have a good strategy to put that all together, right?
Yep, exactly.
That's really good. Yeah. Dal, how about you?
Sure. I tend to find that I lean more into the System 1. I think given how quickly and what a quick pace our projects do operate on, I think for logistic reasons, lean into System 1 because of that. So the time that I'm able to spend with consumers, one of the things that I do like is that you can go from asking consumers how much they like something, how much do they like a product, and then seamlessly go into how did that product that you just tasted make you feel. So I do like that ability to be able to logistically move in a direction where you can get that nudge information pretty quickly and pretty rapidly without having the consumer sit with you for a really long period of time. So I think logistically System 1 seems to work for us for like I said, because of the way that we capture the data and also because of our projects too, right? And because they move so quickly. There's I wanted to call it one of the slides that you do have, where you do have moment in the center of the slide, and you have brand, intention, or reward and experience around it. That is something that we really lean into because of the fact that that moment, what we call occasions, is really important. And the reason that it's important is because it tells us what time of day are people consuming our products. So that's also important too, right? And then also another thing is that moment is also important for us too, because it also helps us with our LTOs or limited edition flavors or seasonal flavors. And you did have a slide on there about seasonal flavors. That's what we're all about too. Is it a product that you would release in the spring versus releasing it in the fall? And that System 1 tells us that. So it tells us, does a product make them feel like it's a summery drink or it's a summery product, or does that emotion make them feel like, this is more fall, this is more winter? So it does help us in finding that niche of where a product could fit, because sometimes it can change completely. Where we may think that a product is going to be released in the summer, but it turns out that the emotional reaction to it is that no, this is really more a fall product instead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. Yeah, the moment piece is definitely an important part of that equation for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why we put it in the middle, because it does change the responses implicitly, especially because it's so tied to our implicit memories, and
Yeah,
cues.
and I do like
Absolutely.
And I do like the way that you have those different ingredients or different flavors that can trigger the occasion too, right? Or can trigger the season, like lavender or peppermint, that cues to consumers when they would be consuming it, or when they would make that connection to a specific ingredient or flavor to that occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it would be like I imagine like Tino, you've got hummus, right? I mean, hummus is a year-round product, but if you're trying to make it relevant, maybe it's the things that you're pairing it with at the time that make it go, seasonal, right? Make it relevant to, oh, it's relevant to me right now, right? So now I want it now. Things like that as well, and then obviously making sure those pairings work.
Yeah. I think for the moments, the system one, like building on what Dal was saying, is so incredibly helpful there, because like you said, I mean, whether someone thinks of hummus or they think of coffee, you're just so programmed as to what you believe that product is going to do for you, that it by getting people away from just what is tried and true, by almost provoking them with different, whether that's through words or images or whatever, it allows for people to really respond at a gut level rather than what I have been trained to think.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, that post-rationalization is it can be a real challenge for people.
Yeah.
For sure. Or for us as researchers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump into the product experience side a little bit more. So we've talked about the relevant promise quite a bit, and we've been layering in the experience as we go, because it's really, really hard to tease those apart. Although a lot of in research, it seems like a lot of companies, like give authority to different divisions to attack each part instead of having that fully integrated. So one of the things that we see is people struggle a little bit with, okay, well, what kind of measures should I use in order to measure this? And Dal, you talked about quite a few, or mentioned quite a few already. So we want to pull up another poll, and this is a little bit of a fun poll. And I want you to think, tell us, okay, which of these questions that you could ask about a product experience, given a person, they're tasting a product, they're trying it, they've seen this product, which measure, and force you to pick one, even though I know all of you are likely to use them all. And if I asked you to pick them all, or pick many, you probably would have picked them all. So I'm forcing people, pick one, just one. Which one do you think is a measure that helps drive best knowledge about how the alignment between the product and the concept is going to be? So looking at this, we've got emotional impact meets expectations going head to head right at the top of the list. And then everything else coming back is a slow second, it appears, for everybody. Well, that's good. That's good. I'm glad it is not overall liking. So overall liking is a good general measure. I do like that measure. Yet when you're trying to tease apart, is this product really aligned well with my concept or my brand? Overall liking is only a kind of a directional indicator. It doesn't tell you actually whether there's alignment there or not. So emotional impact looks like it's taken the lead at 33%. I'll take that at the moment, and we'll say, look, we wanted to talk more about emotional impact. So one of the things that's interesting about System 1 and System 2 information is the emotional impact piece becomes a unique, or starts to change things just a little bit. So I can throw emotional words at you. So like you're having, let's take an experience with a product, and while you're consuming that product, I can throw words like happy, sad, frustrated at you. But one of the things that is often really challenging is that true emotions are very fast and fleeting, and they're really hard for people to remember without a tool or a trigger to make that happen. So if you go back to psychology, we have our traditional approach of calibrate people, prime them, and then assess the thing. When it comes to emotions, we typically need to add one new step, which is a projective step. So this is going back to Psychology 101 for all the psychologists in the audience today. And this is being able to project your emotions on an image of some sort and then rating or that image for how that image makes you feel. And so it gives you a opportunity to do that projective exercise to get more accurate information. When you do this within your system 1, system 2 approaches, you become really highly repeatable with your measures. So this adds that level of confidence that you're getting really good information from it. And it adds a whole new layer. So for instance, we'll throw one example out here, and that's when we were at the beginning of the craze of plant-based meats, and Beyond Burger was just launching into the market. There was a lot of people that were plant-based burger users already, because there were quite a few on the market. It was already an existing category, right? And I hadn't yet tried Beyond Burger. So we asked people to compare their current burger to Beyond Burger. And what we found was overall liking scores were identical, but it was in the emotions where the story really came out. So the satisfaction scores were pretty much the same between the two. Happiness, this experience delivered with Beyond Burger delivered a higher degree of happiness, and more importantly, I think in the grand scheme of growth, was less disappointment. So it better fit with people's expectations. That's what starts to drive that repeat use over and over and over again. And then by taking that information and layering on real conversations with people, you get to dig deeper into why. So why is happiness shifting for Beyond Burger when they get similar liking scores? Well, in this case, we found several different key insights. And one was that it was that real meat aroma and the cooking experience that made them feel like it was something they fit with their memories and nostalgias that they had, and it was closer to their real meat ideal experience,
Right.
which was being promoted in the marketing messaging
Right.
for
And
Beyond Burger and those
I could
products.
add, this was a
Whoop.
home use test. We did this
Yeah,
study.
true.
And so people actually had the full experience at home with cooking and whatever. And if you think about, so the moment, it was people's moment of experience in the center. And this product did very well in the marketplace. And in doing so, it connect all those, that flywheel metaphor, it hit all those elements. The expectation is going to look like real meat, it's going to taste like real meat, was there. The positioning was addressing a need in terms of people's interest in eating plant-based versus an alternative to real meat, and the sensorial experience aligned. And what it did is it created that connection back to the brand, and that brand took off, did very well in the marketplace. If you're only hanging your hat on, here's the question for Dal and Tina, if you're only looking at overall liking, would you have moved that product forward? Would you have projected it would do as well in the marketplace as it did?
Right.
So I'll go ahead and go first, unless you have something top of mind, Tina, that you want to jump in on.
No, it's totally fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So when I design research, any type of research design, it's usually based on the objective. So it depends on what is the objective, and that will dictate in what direction I'll go into as far as whether or not I'll even use system 1 or system 2. And like I was saying earlier, I use system 1 probably more than well, a lot more than system 2, just because of, and I stated all those reasons earlier. But based on the objective of the research that we're conducting, it will help give us a clue as to whether or not we do need to deploy system 1. And if we do, it has, I shouldn't say if we do, I should say when we do, it has sometimes been the tiebreaker. It's been really helpful in that we may have, let's say we have 2 products in a consumer test, and the liking scores are the same, jar scores are the same, and sometimes it's really difficult to say which one would you recommend. It's sometimes not really. I don't like to say, hey, I would recommend moving forward with both of them. If there is something that can be a tiebreaker in the form of emotions, which it sometimes is, and it's really usually pretty clear that 2 samples are the same for overall liking and all of these other metrics that we do deploy. But in emotions, it comes out differently. And I think that because of emotions, it has sometimes given us the opportunity to tell that cohesive story, like I was saying earlier. And that cohesive story is that, hey, consumers like these 2 products the same, but there's more of an emotional connection to sample A versus sample B, and that really tells a better story than you would get with any of those quantitative metrics that you would typically get. So I think that's probably the main thing, is building that research based on objective, and then whatever that objective is, if it is really clear that you are trying to find the product that you want to launch, or that is really telling the voice of the consumer, then we'll build emotional or implicit emotions into that test design.
Yeah. I would say, and building on top of that, I mean, obviously, yes, liking is an important KPI for a lot of companies because there's a lot of benchmarks that many companies have built around liking. But similar to what Dallas said, it doesn't tell you the complete story, right? It tells you one aspect of it. And especially it's not particularly helpful when you think about how to communicate then about that product, how to position it, how actually to bring and make it as successful as it can be. Obviously, something needs to be liked when we're talking about a food or beverage product, but that's only one piece of it. If I only know that, yes, you like this at a certain level of intensity, you need to dig into what is it about it that is driving that connection there, and what, again, is it doing for you, both from a product benefit, but also an emotional aspect that is going to get me then to be able to communicate about that product in the most compelling manner. So I think you can't just rely on just that one aspect. And especially because, as Dal said, lots of times you get many products that are actually can be equally well liked on that one KPI, but they could be delivering very different experiences and emotional connections that you really do need to understand.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, we certainly see that quite a bit, that being able to figure out, how many people within the population have certain reactions, and allows us to also size that a little bit better as well. So not only is it just necessarily the tiebreaker of, well, does it skew one way or does it skew another, but being able to actually put numerics of, oh, it's this percent of the population has, greater emotional connection. That gives you a sense of, okay, well, how big of a difference do I see here? And if you're in a situation where it's like, well, I got some prototypes, this one's a lot less expensive than this one. Now you have the opportunity to say, okay, well, let's put some metrics against that as well. Let's figure out if that's actually worth the spend to get to that level.
I also think, it's funny, again, when we were talking about earlier, that people tend to have, if you just ask them something, they have a very rational response as to why they choose to eat or drink something, right? If you ask someone about coffee, usually it's all about, oh, I need this pick me up. Or if you ask about, in our category, hummus, it's because, oh, I want a healthier snack. Okay. They actually speaking for our category, it's solving for a lot more than just that. And if we were only going to rely on the rational system 2 reaction to our product, it would not be telling the full story of why people turn to us when they do and how it makes them feel.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's excellent. All right, so we have time for questions. So I know that Bridget, you talked about having there's a question box or a connection there. So we would love to catch questions from everybody here. So go ahead and jump in and be asking some questions to anybody on the team.
Yeah, thank you so much. As Greg was saying, if you have any questions, you can pop them in that questions box, and we'll make our way through them. But to kick off our Q&A section, this question, just for reference, came in when you were talking about the burger example and kind of the emotional side of it. So could you expand more on how you are measuring emotion and how it's being validated?
Good question. Good question. So for the emotions, so if you're looking at the implicit explicit test, so calibration for each individual then sets their time. Second part is you prime them. So if you're focusing on a specific product experience, it's that experience. If you're doing something conceptually, it's that concept, et cetera, so forth. So you're getting them into the moment mentally. Then you're going to have them present whatever that information is, and you're going to have them react to that by picking an image that matches their emotional experience. Because what's happening is you don't just feel one emotion. You take a sip of your coffee and, oh, I just feel happy. No, you feel a whole range of emotions, bam, simultaneously. So what we want to be able to do is get something metaphorical, like an image, that allows you to say, yes, that experience, that image matches the experience I just had. So they pick an image from a curated set that has no rational, like we wouldn't have, if you're tasting honey coffee, you wouldn't have honey in there, right? No images that are rational images like that. You force a metaphor, and then from that, you can then measure against that image. And what we find in terms of repeatability is that people will pick different pictures every single time for the same experience, but they'll have the same system 1, system 2 scores against that. So their scores will be consistent, even though the images they pick are inconsistent. Why is that valuable? It's valuable because you know that the image then isn't the driving factor, right? That's influencing the scores that you have. So you're getting a true read of that experience. And that technique is not a new one, right? Go back to your Psychology 101 books. It's a great technique for capturing people's emotions.
If I could add to it, is like, since emotions are so fleeting and people have an experience, you can then, by having a transfers of basically call a reverse prime from that experience to the image, then you can represent that image over and over and over. You can't have the experience over and over and over again. So it's a valuable tool when you're trying to measure emotional reactions to an experience.
Right. Yeah, there's other situations. I mean, you could do emotions over time. You could be in a room where you're trying to actually measure your mood instead of your emotions. That's a little different. You don't have to use imagery if your goal is to measure a person's mood, an overall state that isn't projected at a product or a brand or anything like that. But when you're projecting it something like a product or a brand, now that's true emotions and they're fast and fleeting, and you need some sort of projective exercise.
Yeah. Thank you. Super interesting. Thanks for expanding on that. Another question that I have here kind of tags off that emotional conversation, but do you usually find that emotional scores provide more differentiated insights than liking scores?
I mean, Dal, you use this a lot, right? You were just saying, I think that's pretty much your experience.
Yeah, they're two different metrics. They're two different ways of telling the story about what you, again, like I was referring to earlier, the objective. And I think that it isn't that one is more valuable than the other. I think that they're capturing different points of view on a product. And so sometimes, like I was saying earlier, with the example of two products scoring the same for a lot of the liking metrics, the overall liking, just about right scores, but emotionally there's a different kind of a connection. So that can help too. I think that one of the other ways that you can look at the value of emotions is one of the options that you had in the poll for what's important was concept fit and liking of the concept. I think that concept also will dictate what that emotion will then tell you at the end. So if you're setting up the task and you do have a concept that you want them to rate, and that concept could be occasion driven, it could be seasonal, and that emotion or that connection. So you go through and you're collecting all of your quantitative data, and then you get to that emotional piece of it. The way that you set the stage with that concept that you originally had will then be even more important because of the fact that that emotion to summer, or that emotion to spring, or that emotion to the holidays will be a different emotion than what overall liking could tell you. So overall liking could tell you that I like this product no matter what, but the emotion piece would be I like this product in the summer, or I like this product in the fall, and that will give you a little bit more ideas. So it really kind of depends on what your objective is. I don't think that I can't really answer that question in one way. I think that there's a lot of different ways that you can get to answering that question, and it really depends on research design. And it also, again, comes back to what is your objective.
Yep.
Wonderful. If someone is feeling something during that day or time, how do you remove that from influencing their responses when primed?
So I think this is all about, like, if I'm not in a good mood today and I'm going and participating in research, or I'm in the morning and I'm tired or something, the prime itself is the trick. So you've got to get people mentally into a certain state of mind in order for you to be able to measure that. Now, if what you're measuring is dependent upon on a person's mood, then you need to be, like Dow was saying, it's kind of like you kind of have to use their current mood as a steady state, and you have to figure out where they're at, and then factor your analysis or your interpretation based on that. But the priming itself can change their current existing mood. So we often use things where we know that's going to be a factor, like storytelling. Get the people into a moment where they're telling this story and they can tell about all the emotions about that story. Now they've primed themselves into a different mood state and or a mental space in order to have that experience. Likewise, if you are doing research where you've got people face to face, and that setting is going to impact people, right? We're all influenced by what we see around us. So if you were sitting in a high energy space, that's going to contribute to how you score things in that moment as well.
If I can add, is what we'll often do is, if people are going to be out of the normal context, let's say central location testing, we always prime people by into a relevant moment for them. And we, like say, as Greg said, we'll have them tell a story, actually type a story at the beginning of the questionnaire, and then represent that to reprime people when we're going into a set of method questions where we want that that system 1 or potentially system 2 response. So it's a so it's a technique that allows you to get in the moment and try to eliminate other factors,
Right.
that could influence as the question was trying to address.
Yeah. Well, it's like making it personal. You mentioned that. That's really true. That's one of the ways, if you want to adjust a person's existing mood by just making them tell something personal that should align with where you want them to be mentally. That's an important piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
Yeah, wonderful. Tina and Dal, would you mind sharing more about how System 1 and 2 thinking has influenced your approach to product positioning or design?
Yeah, I can start there. Well, even within just traditional product testing, we have started to incorporate it. And it has been really eye-opening in how what a product delivers from a sensorial aspect can drive different associations with benefits that are delivered, as well as what emotions are elicited from that product. So we use it, have used it now to really understand, gee, how do I even talk about what this certain product is delivering versus something else in our line? So it's been really, really helpful in bringing the occasions and the feelings that you feel when you are eating something to life, and putting it in a product, putting it in a context that people can then sort of better judge the occasion that this would be appropriate for and what it could do for them. So that's how we're using it. And again, it goes well beyond, again, just liking or jar scores, all the way to telling a story about that product.
And for me, I think I want to preface this response is that I think that it's always important to have a strong working relationship with MRI, with your marketing research team, which we do here. And I think that in other positions that I've held, other companies that I've worked in, there is a lot of value to having the MRI team as part of your communication and the way that you do make recommendations to the company or to the organization as a whole. So I want to preface it in that way, first of all. And by saying that, positioning isn't something that my team, that would be in the wheelhouse of my team. Positioning would be something that we would lean into as coming from our marketing research team. So there are certain things that we do here that may not be the same at other places, but the way that we, and it isn't really a fine line, but the way that we do draw a little bit of a line as to where the wheelhouse would be for marketing research or for sensory and product insights is that if it's around the product itself, then we'll take it and we'll design research for it. Sometimes there's research that's connected between the two, right? But if it's positioning, we usually tend to lean into our marketing research team to help with that versus us taking on that responsibility. So I think that to answer that question, we don't do positioning just because of the fact that we have people within our organization who are better at doing that than we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing that's a little bit unique for where I am right now with Sabra is we, tend to, because we are a leaner organization, we tend to wear a lot of hats in the one role. So, but I think that's an excellent point that Dal makes, is you definitely want to make sure you have a strong connection, even though I'm, on the insights team reporting in through marketing. I also get to be and see a lot of the product testing work that is completed, and we do lead that. But again, similar to what Dal's saying, you have to have that strong connection with your marketing team and make sure that they feel comfortable then in the learnings that you see, so that they can then be translated to communication.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Wonderful. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today's webinar. Before we wrap up, I just want to let everyone know that if you are interested, this webinar will be available to watch back on demand on the Greenbook webinar website.
Yeah.
And you will receive a link to watch it on demand as well.
And Bridget, if I can add, there's a link here on this page you're showing right now, which is this QR code. And this is a place where you can there's like 6 different ways you can learn more. There's some downloads. There's another webinar you can connect, and a recording that you can connect into, or some other opportunities to chat with members of the Insights Now team on this. So it's we're open to help people learn more about these sort of techniques and this subject that we discussed today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, don't forget to scan that QR code. Tina, Greg, Dave, Dal, to all of you, thank you so much for being here. This was a super fun webinar. And to all of our attendees, thanks for joining us. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tina.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Tina. Thanks, Dal.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.